Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Comrade Detective Season 1, Episode 3. It's called Bread is Bread. Full spoilers for the episode, as always. So, we had creepy, evil priest and creepy religious imagery. But let's not bury the lead here. There's something more important we have to talk about.
There is?
The best line of dialogue in this entire
Oh,
show
oh, oh, of course.
happened
I,
during
I
this
know where this is
episode.
going.
So Gregor grabbed the all two cops, the two partners we've seen who are Dragos and Stan. Stan's Jake Johnson's voice, who's very recognisable, and Dragos is the ginger one of the two, which is relevant to what I'm about to say. So they basically get this case. The opening scene of the episode is this really fun. I'll say fun, but fun in a sort of over the top kind
Yeah.
of way. It's this.
You have a different definition of fun to most people.
Hey, hey, it was an obviously fake throat slash. So you know
Okay.
this religious like sort of cult looking guy, like he spray painted a big mural of Christ on the wall, which of course illegal in Soviet Union, and the cops are like, "Hey, you filth, what are you doing?" And they look up at the end of the scene, they're like shocked. This is grotesque. What is this here? Which, by the way, is an atheist watching this episode where they all think religion is evil is a really weird experience when it's the satire that it is. Even though I think there was a couple of valid points in there that was kind of poking at the current system.
Yeah.
But yeah, so these two cops get the case for it, and they basically just write it off as an easy win. They don't look into it properly. They just say, "Oh, it's obviously just he's killed himself because he's sad and pathetic, and he was smuggling Bibles. Didn't want caught. Offed himself."
Yep.
Because when you just want to escape something, slitting your own throat's the easy way of doing it.
Apparently it is, or at least it was.
Uh, but of course, when Gregor and Yosef find out about this, and they hear it's a smuggler that's involved, they think, "Oh, that may be connected to our case." And Gregor decides to rough up Dragos a bit, and he slams his head in the desk, and he starts like, "Oh, you think you're a good detective, you ginger shit." Actually, I think it was little ginger shit, I believe is the line. And I just about cheered. I'm not very audible when I'm watching stuff. Like I'm very sort of very focused. I'm very quiet and
Mm.
very intent on what I'm doing. But I cheered. The hands were up. I was on a roller coaster. I was like hands in the air. I was like, yes, yes, you ginger little shit.
As
Because I
soon as you
knew.
said that, I was like, oh, I know you're going to love that line.
Because as soon as he said it, I'm like, I get to rub this in. I get to rub this in later. So, god
I'm
damn
not
it.
sure it's rubbing it in. It wasn't aimed at me.
Yeah, but now I can say ginger little or little ginger shit all the time, and it's a
Oh,
reference to
like
something.
you didn't do that anyway.
Not that particular phrasing,
I'm sure you've said it before.
probably, but now it's got. Now it's
You've
got
gone
some.
through so many variations of ginger insults that you must have said that at some point.
So, um, so we get this cool scene that sets up this creepy priest character, Strezzo, I think his name was, or Strezor. If I
Streza.
Strezor, there you go. And he's in a confessional, and her Ronald Reagan killer is in the booth. He's like, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." He's like, "Oh, do you accept God?" Blah 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 blah. The usual spiel. He's like, "Yes, but I'm going to build you a church, Father." And like he leaves all mysteriously, but at the end of the scene, and then the priest like like smiles creepily like and the proper go, this is like an evil cult, because later on when you see him in this underground church, he is like a cult leader. He's got his hands in the air, and they're all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really plays up to that. Obviously, that's kind of the point. You know, the
Yeah.
satire is the propaganda of showing that this is evil.
And so Gregor and Yosef sort of connect the victim to him, or victim, the perp. I mean, it's not really a victim; it's suicide. And they go. And it turns out he's a baker. That's his regular day job. And they go in, and he offers them bread. And right away, this guy is creepy as shit. He's like, you can tell he's an evil bastard behind that
Yeah.
smile. And he's talking about how bread's actually like the flesh of Christ, and that whole process and all that stuff. And of course, Yosef and Gregor are just talking about how silly all this is. It's a fairy tale, I think they say later on in the episode. But they end up following him right after this, and they fall into a park, and it does that again. It's one of these tropes where they look away for a second, or someone walks in front of them.
There's a crowd
Yeah.
that walks in front of him. Yeah.
And then he's gone, and then it does that other really, and I have to imagine this is super intentional, but it gets dark like really quick, like in the middle of this chase, which is just a chase across a park. By the time it's finished, it's pitch black. It's like middle of the night. So again, I think it's playing with some of those, some of those tropes and like cliches almost, and even to like because even that wasn't like an intentional thing. That was just a mistake because it was easier to shoot without a transition.
But it's the sort of thing that they would have done.
So it does all that, and they end up getting him back at his house anyway. Which leads him to, like, he's not talking, and that brings in Jane, who was the assistant to the ambassador, but is now the acting ambassador because of course the ambassador.
Yes, that's how it works.
Met her in time. And 80s cop shows that's how it works.
I'm not disputing that.
And Jane's like, "Oh, this man's just practicing his religious freedom. You're infringing upon his rights." And blah 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 blah. And Gregor's like, "No, Yusuf, let's let this go. You go and spend some time with your family tonight. I'll look into something." And he's like, "Oh, what are you going to do?" And I mean, you think he's going to rough the shit out of him. You think he's going to go in with a book and just beat the shit out of the guy until he speaks. But in actual fact, we've already shown that Gregor is an immaculate man when it comes to the ladies. So he decides to use that skill set for this particular situation.
Again, very 80s cop.
He does. He goes to meet Jane. And he's like, "Oh, you hungry?" And they go for dinner. And I love this dinner scene, by the way. Everything about this was like, obviously the whole thing's been flipping the tropes on its head so that it's like against the West. But everything in this just really hit it home for me because it was like. Because it felt like the exact scene that would play out in one of these movies or TV shows where we have like a Russian or some Eastern European female character who she'll talk about how she misses home. I mean, sure, it's this, and this, and there's all these things, but it was home, and I have my family there, and it's loving, and there is good things about it. But of course, here she's talking about America, and she's like, "Oh yeah, sure, there's poverty, and there's whores, and there's AIDS. There's a lot of AIDS. There's AIDS everywhere."
Yeah.
And it's just like she's replaced it with all this, this counter propaganda that are fed to these people, and it really was cracking me up. It was super super good.
It was.
But no, it's just him sitting laughing when she says, "Oh, it's the greatest country in the world," and he's just like, because I can just imagine in my head it the other way around, and like some Russian woman says that in an American movie, and the American cop's just like,
yeah. That is why it works so well, because we've seen it done before, but the other way. That's it, isn't it? Like, it just, the joke's there already. It doesn't have to try.
Yeah, and so she says, "By the way, I don't sleep with Romanian men on the first date." And he says, "You want to bet?" Cut to sex scene.
It's a very stylized sex scene, actually.
It was very stylized. They really. They went for the whole. It felt. Actually, I can tell you the scene. It felt like Lethal Weapon 2.
Yeah, you're right.
Lethal Weapon 2 with the. Was it a saxophone that was playing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Felt like the sex scene in Lethal Weapon 2. Very very much like that. In fact, Lethal Weapon's not a bad comparison in some ways to this partnership to an extent.
It's not, no. I mean, I think we've brought up already in previous reviews.
The fact that Yusuf has a family, much like Murtaugh had a family, there's definitely some parallels going on here. So, I mean, it parallels to a lot of things, but that's just obviously a really notable example. So while this is going on, we see Yusuf with his wife, with his son. He notices his daughter's not in bed, and he makes his son, it's like, "It's your duty to inform on your sister."
Makes him snitch.
Yeah, makes him snitch. That's a big part of the society. And then he goes down to the car. She's just out in the car, and she's listening to Western music. It's like upbeat Western music. And he comes in, and she's like, I was only listening to it for a minute. I swear, Dad. It's like, "I'm not mad." It's like, "But you're almost a young woman now. I'm going to talk to you like an adult." And I was not prepared for the next line that came out of his mouth, because the next line that came out of his mouth was, "Do you know what a whore is?" And I thought, "Oh shit, where's the conversation going?"
The same.
Is he going to call his daughter a whore? I thought he
I thought he was on the path of going, "Yeah, it's fine, I'm not disappointed." but you're a whore.
I felt like it might go there. Instead, he just, he's like, he basically says, like, do you think, girls, grow up wanting to be a whore when they grow up? And she's like, no. And yet there's so many of them. And this is why, because this is a tool. This is the conditioning from a young age to make people that way. And of course, she throws the radio out the window and breaks it. He's like, you don't have to break the radio. There was some nice classical music on tomorrow night.
It's the great meta commentary as well, isn't it? Like the intention of the show is like in universe is it's a propaganda piece to brainwash.
Yeah. Which actually reminds me, we actually had a little
opening,
Channing Tatum bit again at the opening with the showrunner, and they talk about how Stanley Kubrick was a fan. This is how the showrunner discovered the series, is because he was doing a documentary about Stanley Kubrick, called Stanley Kubrick's Boxes, and in one of the boxes there was a copy of Comrade Detective.
And they found in his diary that he'd rewatched episode 3 and thought it was great.
During dinner. He watched episode 3 of Comrade Detective during dinner.
Yeah.
Do you know what I love about that opening bit? And I mean, the other one as well, but this one I was noticing it even more so. It was the deadpan seriousness of Chang. Because the showrunner here, I mean, I'm assuming he's the actual showrunner and not an actor. Because he's got this very kind of normal way about him, the way he speaks. Yeah. Or actually, it's kind of the opposite. It's almost a little unnatural, because he's doing the I'm speaking in front of a camera voice, whereas Channing Tatum, being an actor, is used to doing it naturally, so it just sounds like you're talking. And it was the way he's like, yeah, so Stanley Kubrick's a fan of this stuff, and then Channing Tatum just goes, wow, should we watch some more? Let's keep watching. It was just the way that it's like he's
So, do you know what? Sometimes I forget Channing Tatum's actually a really good actor.
He can be really good. He's been in a lot of bad stuff. It took a while for me to notice him as a potentially good actor, but he can do a good job in the right roles. But no, so we got some stuff with Yosef and his family, which was very wise, because if we want to care about him for stuff that, it's humanising. It gives them all these reasons to care about Yosef as a person, so that by the end of the episode, when something bad happens to him, even though I'm sure he'll be fine by like 10 minutes into the next episode, we feel something for it. There's the stakes to it beyond just, he's been the other cop for the season.
Yeah.
So they actually put a nice little twist on us here. I don't know if you were impressed with this little twisteroo. So you think that Gregor's talked Jane into getting an interview with the priest, and they're sitting there and they're asking him questions, and he keeps just sort of being, oh, where are you getting your Bibles? It's the Word of God. I get it from him. It's like, no, the actual books, the physical books, the Bible, you tit. And of course he keeps talking, and Yosef is like, oh, you can't give evidence to prove a negative, like, it's always, it felt like proper. This was the really weird part of the episode for me, being an atheist. I'm like, okay, this is supposed to have it flipped in its head, but I'm kind of finding myself agreeing with the communist detectives here a little bit much. But
that coupled with the part during the sex scene, or after, when they were talking in bed.
Oh yeah.
And she said, a lot of us don't really believe, but we just pretend we do so that they'll vote for us.
It was more specifically, it was those. Oh, it wasn't idiots. Mouth breathers? No. But it was that meaning.
Yeah.
Those morons. Just, it wasn't that word, but yeah. So those morons will vote for us. But interesting. Actually, I kind of like the whole thing where he's like, I need you to do me a favour. And she's like, well, I'm a capitalist, so you're going to have to work for it.
Oh, the innuendo there was fantastic.
Yeah, so good. But so it starts to get heated, and she eventually gets angry at them. Oh, you're he's been more than helpful. He's given you a name, which, by the way, the name he gives is this killer that's coming for us. Like, he's like, oh, this mysterious man is going to build me a church, and he's coming for you detectives. He's coming. And it's like, oh, who is this? And he gives them James Brown as the name. Which they rightly assume is an alias, but it was still amusing when he said it. Like, I was like, James Brown?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. But it gets really heated, and she's like, oh, I'm shutting this interview right down right now. And, like, Priest, walks out all smug. He's kind of laughing like a madman as he leaves. Really good. I actually like this actor. This actor doing the Priest.
Daniel Craig. For the voice.
Off the I meant the.
No, no, no. Oh, right, okay. Because the laughing you mentioned was obviously that
Oh
was
sure, no,
him.
I mean the creepy smile he was doing on
Oh,
like
yeah, yeah, it was
throughout.
good.
I was liking the actor. Obviously Daniel Craig did a good job for the
I
voice.
thought it was actually very interesting that he's one of the few people doing a voice rather than just his own.
Well, that's why I never recognized him for a
There
second
was
because I
there was a
was
few bits where I think he kind of slips into it where you can hear him,
because
but for the most part, he's putting on a voice.
yeah, he's doing an accent, which I think is supposed to add to the fact that he's meant to be creepy. So he's the foreign accent, which is
Yeah, yeah.
almost
But
silly
it's really strange, isn't it?
because everyone else has just got an American accent, so why not him?
Yeah.
But then he leaves, and then it's like, oh no, Jane was in this the whole time because they have that fun little moment where Gregor says, "Oh, do you know why Jesus wasn't born in the West? It's because they couldn't find three wise men or a virgin," and she slaps him. And that's actually a really good joke. I'm not gonna lie, I laughed. But it turns out that she was in this whole. This was the ruse. They wanted him to think that he got out with them not getting what they wanted, but they follow him, and we actually get to the apartment building that we were at the end of last episode, and this is where the final showdown goes down, and they're watching him dance to this song. He's doing this stupid
It's
thing.
ridiculous, isn't it?
I can't even. I don't even know what to call it, and uh, I guess James Brown sneaks in behind him with the mask on and hits him with a bat. I thought the bat hitting was a bit weak, but I mean,
Yeah.
I just felt a bit limp. I guess it didn't have much impact to it. Which I don't know if that one was intentional because it just felt kind of awkward. But then Yosef runs after him and he jumps out the window, and then Yosef looks down and he's like, "Well, okay," and then he runs and jumps. And I love this because this was an intentionally bad sequence. This
Yeah.
was like, he's jumping from this, like, I don't know, what is it, like 6 stories, something like that? It's tall.
Give or take. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it just cuts to him landing on the ground, and it's just this obvious,
He
like,
does this little roll.
yeah, he just jumped from like 2 feet for that landing, and it's obvious he just did that. But that's intentional. It's meant to look like a bad action scene. This was funny.
It's
Whereas
part of the charm, isn't it?
yeah. So I was really cracking up, and even the idea that he gets the killer dead to rights. The killer's gun's empty. He's got him, and then this truck comes and hits him.
Do you know what, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that was an ambulance because it was white and it had the red cross.
It didn't look an ambulance to me because of the type of truck it was. I assumed it was like meant to be like something that transports medicine and stuff like that.
Oh, maybe. It definitely felt like it was medical though.
Oh yeah, it was definitely medical. Yeah, but I
But I thought, it's ironic, isn't it? Because they keep going on about their health service.
how good it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's just almost killed him.
Yeah, that was where I think the commentary was really come in when he's talking to the priest about, or maybe it was about with Jane when she's there as well, because she talks about how religion's a freedom, it's a right. It's like no, healthcare is a right, religion's a delusion or whatever, and I'm like, man, this guy's really speaking to me. Maybe I shouldn't be sympathizing so much with the Soviets here, but like,
Yeah. You socialist scum.
dear. But I think that's kind of, even though it's flipping these things in its head, as much as it is satire, but so some of it is actually poking at our own things, it's our own systems, and that's obviously one of them. It's saying, well, we can mock religion in this weird way here, and that's not to say that just because it's in the show doesn't mean that the creators or the intent is that religion should be arrested and prosecuted in the way this priest does. It's just it can help point things out.
Yeah.
The extreme in either way is ridiculous, and this is the point.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we end with Yosef in a coma, and the wife and kids come out of the hospital, and
They're all distraught.
and they're all distraught, and obviously it works quite well because we seen them have a moment with all three of them in the episode, so it worked really well. And then Yosef goes to the crime scene, and they've found a film reel of a cheerleader, which for them is like this weird snuff movie because it's so American.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Honestly, actually, I mean, nothing's
It's kind of creepy though, wasn't it?
It was creepy, yeah. I think because it was the really sort of damaged old school film. It felt like whoever was behind the camera was probably about to kill her, even if it wasn't. It felt like it had that kind of feeling to it, like it was about to be a snuff film. But of course, the joke is that it's not, and it's just her being a cheerleader and with the pom poms and doing the dance.
Yeah, you mentioned then, it felt like a really old piece of film, and I was really noticing that in this episode, all the artifacts that were popping. Obviously, the intentional ones to make it feel like this is, this video that they've recovered. But I was really noticing all the artifacts popping up.
Yeah. No, I think this was my favourite one yet.
Me too.
Might not have been the funniest one yet, but it was my favourite one from a plot perspective. I really liked the creepy cult priest and how they handled all that. And just the overall, I like the fact that this James Brown villain, which is ridiculous when you say it out loud, he does feel genuinely quite creepy.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah.
And we've said this all through these reviews, but we're actually quite impressed with how much I actually like the plot and how I'm into it.
Do you know what? This is I just happened to read an interview, in the last couple of days since we've done the last one, and it was saying how the way that they did this is they just went over to Romania with the scripts, got all the actors, shot it, edited it in Romanian with subtitles, so it had like it had to function as just a general cop show on its own before they dubbed it and all that.
Interesting.
So that's maybe why it actually has a story. In the sense that they actually treat it as, no, let's actually get a show in there as well.
I wouldn't phrase it that way. I wouldn't say that's why it has a story. I'd say they knew they had to have a story, so they did it this way first so it held up on its own before they put in the funny dubbing.
Yeah. But obviously when we hear about gimmick first.
But yeah, it sounds very gimmicky, and we even expected something that was just episode by episode plots because it was just going to be stupid stuff to facilitate whereas it actually works as a proper cop thing where they're searching for this killer. It's not the best plot in the world, but it's really functional. It works.
Absolutely.
The villain's creepy, and it's kind of over the top, of course, but and I wonder if actually when they wrote the script, because obviously who the writer and stuff will know what they're going to do with it. I wonder if they wrote it knowing, okay, this is, because they still had to write it as if it's, because I assume whatever the dialogue was in Romanian was still what the English was eventually going to be, give or take.
Yeah, I assume so.
Yeah, so they were still purposely putting in these things that would be satire, when it's all said and done. But that's interesting. It's interesting they said no, it has to work on its own before we add in the dubbing.
Right, and other than like Channing Tatum, who was obviously involved at like a producing level, they hadn't cast any of the voices until after it was finished editing.
That makes sense. Do you know the great thing about this is that you can get a Daniel Craig because it's just a couple of hours in a sound booth.
Right.
You can get him for a couple of hours, and it's not that expensive to get him for a couple of hours. Even though he's Daniel Craig, comparatively speaking, compared
to the budget of your show, most TV shows could manage that.
Yeah, compared to actually having play the priest, who would be there for several days of filming.
Yeah.
Big difference in price there.
Yes.
Even just the 2 hours, the time per hour, I'm pretty sure is less because it's just voice work. I could be wrong though. I mean, I haven't actually checked what the rates are these days, but
you have to assume that logically, don't you?
But even if it isn't, it's still only 2 hours compared to several days of work.
Right. Yeah. Even just at face value, that's cheaper instantly.
Yeah. And that's why we can get these guest stars. And I'm sure it's tempting for them to do. It probably seems like a fun idea, especially for the guest ones. I mean, obviously Channing Tatum and Joseph Gordon-Levitt and some of the other main characters, like, yeah, if we get a season 2, they'll come back, and even for them it's probably not that much work compared to regular projects. But you have to imagine there's a lot of appeal for the guests to come in and go, oh, it's just a couple of hours and it's just a one-time thing. I just come in and I do, this crazy character. I get to have fun with it. And
yeah, have a bit of fun for half a day. Spend my morning doing that. Get a paycheck.
Go for I don't know, a bit of pool for the afternoon. I don't know, whatever these famous people who have a lot of money do. Sorry?
The bar, probably.
Sure, have a drink next to the pool. Yeah, do that. Do the whole thing. Buy out an entire restaurant for yourself so there's no one disturbing you.
Why not?
Okay, I think we're done.
Yeah.
So, that is episode 3. We'll be back with episode 4. We are aiming to do that tomorrow, so you can look forward to that then. And hopefully we will be done with the season by the weekend. That's the plan. Whether we hit that target's another question, but that's the hope right now. So the plan is to go one a day from here on out, but we'll see how it plays out. So that is episode 3. Let us know what you think about in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. You can go over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv and you can support us over there if you want to. But otherwise, guys, that is us. So thank you very much once again for watching. Keep watching TV. We'll see you next time. Have you got any vanilla?